Thank you all for joining us for Conversations in Color, Reflections on the LGBTQIA Experience in America. Before we get started, I wanted to unpack that acronym just a little bit. The letters stand for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and depending on context, A can also stand for ally. Just under 52 years ago, we are 5 days shy of the anniversary, members of the LGBTQIA community rebelled against the unjust harassment they were constantly facing from members of law enforcement. In what is deemed by some as the turning point in the gay liberation movement, the Stonewall riots brought the fight for equal rights to the forefront of the nation's collective consciousness. Today, the fight continues to combat the discrimination and confront prejudices towards LGBTQIA identified individuals within the workplace and in society. The community continues to experience the effects of homophobic and sometimes violent disenfranchisement across America. In honor of Pride Month, we are here today to reflect on the personal experiences of our panelists, as well as to discuss what actions are imperative for the future that includes and celebrates the equality, liberations, and contributions of the LGBTQIA community in America. My name is Amiee Sadler, and I'm the Education and Research Manager for People 3. People 3 is a full-service diversity and inclusion firm based here in Nashville. In addition to my passion for diversity and inclusion, I'm also a member of the LGBTQIA community and a proud parent to a daughter that is part of the community as well. I'm honored to be joined by our distinguished panel of guests. I would like to introduce our panel. Joe Woolley. Joe has been CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber since August of 2018. Since taking the helm, Joe has been relentless in the pursuit of excellence for the Nashville LGBT Chamber, leveraging the Chamber's members, community partners, staff, and board of directors. Joe's dedication to the organization has began long before becoming CEO, serving 4 years on the board of directors, including 2 years as president. Joe has a long history of LGBT advocacy. He was one of 5 founders of the Tennessee Equity Project back in 2004. He is a mayor-appointed board member for the Nashville Education Community and Arts Television. He was chosen for the 2018-2019 class of Leadership Nashville and is currently on the leadership team for the current class. He also serves on the Nashville Area Chamber Partnership 2030 Advisory Committee, helping shape the economic direction of the city for the next 10 years. Joe loves to work out, travel, to entertain friends in his home in the Belmont neighborhood of Nashville that he shares with his husband, Jim, and their dog, Spooner. Anyone who mentions dogs are definitely a friend of mine. Elle Cook is originally from Chicago by way of Nashville and was commissioned as an officer in the Adjutant General, the AG Force, after graduating with a Bachelor's of Science in Art, Philosophy, and Literature, and a minor in Systems Engineering from the United States Military Academy, West Point, New York. Upon commissioning, he was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. His assignments there included platoon leader, executive officer, and human resource officer for a logistics-based operations unit. Elle is featured in the award-winning film Transmilitary. Elle has an insatiable curiosity for community outreach and development and all things design, great books, and perfecting the art of not burning his food. Also, as one of his best friends for more than 20 years, I can attest that not burning his food is a modest way of saying he's a phenomenal cook. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to next introduce Greg Cason. Greg received his bachelor's degree at Tennessee State University, a master's of business administration at Middle Tennessee State University, and a certificate in executive leadership at Vanderbilt University. He is often seen volunteering within the Nashville and LGBT community. In his spare time, he enjoys spending time with his 2 daughters, 6 grandchildren, and his husband, Landry. When asked why he volunteers so much of his time, he states, "I give because I know what it feels to be without." I would like to introduce Kimberly Stephan Tate. Kimberly serves as the Director of Talent Attraction, Diversity, and Inclusion for Asurion, a global leader of technology solutions and connected life services. Kimberly is currently an advisor to the Middle Tennessee Board of Directors for Big Brothers Big Sister. She's an active member of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, HRC Nashville, the Oasis Center's Just Us program for at-risk youth, and Thistle Farms, a nonprofit for women victims of sexual trafficking. She previously served on the Tennessee Equities Project Board of Directors. Kimberly was the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce Samuel Felker 2018 Business Leader of the Year Award. Kimberly also owns her own business, Tate of Mind Consulting, which focuses on resume writing, LinkedIn optimization, and career coaching. Last and certainly not least, Terry Vo. Terry Vo is part of the external affairs team at Comcast Cable Corporation and manages community investments and partnerships in the Tennessee region. Terry is very active in the community and serves on the board of directors for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Middle Tennessee and Dismas House. She was named one of Nashville's top 30 under 30, National Business Journal's top 40 under 40, recipient of the Japan American Society of Tennessee Sakura Award for Outstanding Leadership, and was recently recognized as a woman of influence by the National Business Journal. She's the co-founder of the Beautiful Bookworms Book Club, avid domestic and international traveler, and enjoys checking out the local food scene in Nashville. Thank you so much for joining us. And Auralia, will you please introduce yourself?
Auralia Baggett. I'm a board member at large for the Bianca Page Foundation. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran and Eagle Scout, professional nerd. Do apologize for all the distracting things behind me. It's just kind of what I do, and it's how I make my living right now.
Well, no need to apologize. I was looking at your background. I was like, that looks like the coolest room in America. I need to be where she is. So if anything, send me links so I can purchase these things. Don't apologize. Don't apologize at all. As we have this discussion today, we welcome you to put questions and comments in the chat. And we also are saving time for a Q&A at the end. I would like to thank you all for being part of this conversation. So let's jump in and get started. So the first question is for everyone on the panel. What do you want most Americans to know about the everyday experiences of LGBTQIA individuals as they walk through the world and in organizations? And if not so much the community as a large, about you? What would you like people to know beyond what they think? And go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say, are you gonna call or?
I'll let you volunteer.
Well, I'll kick it off. It's great to be here. Thank you for having us. It's so great to see all of my friends on this panel. I would say that the struggle is not over. The fight is not over. If anything, we need to lean in and work harder than ever before. I think a lot of LGBT people, specifically gays and lesbians, thought in 2015 after marriage equality, all right, we've got what we fought for. It's time to, just live life and it's done. It is not done. Every marginalized community in the world, in America, is on a list. Our transgender siblings are at the top of that list right now. Gays and lesbians are on that list. Black people have always been on that list. Jews have always been on that list. Immigrants have always been on that list. Trans people are at the top of the list right now, being further marginalized and further attacked. And we have to stand united. All marginalized communities are stronger together than they are, separated. But to the gay and lesbian community, you're still on the list and the struggle is not over. To our trans siblings, hang in there. We see you, we hear you, we see the attacks that are coming your way. We're standing with you. I know it is hard, but try and educate people on gender identity issues, because that is why they are targeting transgender people, is the lack of knowledge around that issue, and it's easy to attack and other them right now. So stand united, educate on this issue, and we will move forward together. We are much stronger together than we are separated.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Sorry, I was gonna echo on what Joe said. I think that there's a lot of people both inside the LGBTQIA plus community and allies that just don't realize how many pieces of legislation threaten us every single season. So if there was something that I could, wave my wand, I would educate everyone on exactly how many pieces of legislation come up every single year that seek to do harm to us. I do think that a lot of people thought once we got marriage equality that like, hey, it's done, we're good. We still struggle with trans legislation that seeks to do harm to the trans community every single season. Things that seek to keep parents from adopting or potential parents to adopt, to foster, things like that. And then I think, as I hear all of these really polished bios of these really great people, there's a story behind every single one of us, right? And, in my life, like what I would want people to know about me specifically is, I can't tell you how many times people have looked at me and said, well, you don't look gay. You don't look like a lesbian. Well, what the hell does a lesbian look like? Like, right? Did you expect me to have like a chain and a wallet and you put some leather on? Like, what did you think that looked like, right? And I also would say I wish everyone understood how hard it is for most people to rectify and reconcile their spirituality and their sexuality because of the hurt and shame that is put on people in the LGBTQ plus community around religion, right? And then the last thing I'll say is being LGBTQ is one layer. There's other layers. And when you also layer in race, ethnicity, the ways in which by having different layers, even more how you can be marginalized in your communities is can be really, really, really scary.
Yeah, I think Joe and Kimberly just said it enough for the whole entire panel. But what I would like for people to see with myself is, first, when people see me, they see an African American male. They don't see the LGBT portion of me, and so I have that first dynamic that I have to go by and get over. The second thing is being a part of this community, and just like Joe said, there's so much legislation that's going out and going against us. Is that if we don't stand together and fight as one united front, then these things will continue to get passed. These things will continue to hurt our community, and we will continue to be fighting for things that other people do not have to fight for. We have to stand up and be recognized and be a representative of so many different groups of individuals. And sometimes it does get overwhelming to be the voice, to be that person, to be that example to so many people that don't really try to understand what we're fighting for or fighting against. And so I encourage everyone to get in, continue to fight, continue to educate individuals, and those of us that are in the corporate environment, make our voices be heard to our corporate CEOs, make them understand that just because it may not affect them and their windshield of life does not necessarily mean that it does not affect the employees within their work group.
Yeah, I would like to echo everything everyone said. And Greg just said, let your CEOs know, even though it doesn't affect you, it affects your employees. But as someone with a who's studied leadership at some place like Vandy, right? I think it's far more important to say this does affect you, right? If it affects your employees, then it affects you because you're an organization who believes in the full inclusivity and full integration of all of your employees and the breadth of their experiences and what they're able to bring to the table, or we're not. We are that organization or we're not that organization. And I promise you, you want to be in an organization that invests in your people so they can invest in you because that affects you. So I say that firstly is critical. And branching off of that, right? Not just talking about CEOs, but everyday people, right? I think it's important for them to know that all of our experiences are not only, right, interdependent and intertwined and so similar in so many ways, but also that, yeah, they're just not that different, right? Like we're not any different from you. And I think the challenge both in the community and out of the community, and I speak, from a trans experience, right? So Kimberly talked about that layer, right? This is just one layer of you. So I speak, I like to call myself a quadruple minority. I stand in the middle of all of those intersections. And so it's critical for me to always highlight, right? Like, this is one very small part of our identity. And I guarantee you, if you look outside of this, we are so similar in so many other ways. One thing I often, I've said to Amiee before, I've said to many people, right? If my transness is the most interesting thing you can find about me, or, someone's sexuality or their gender identity, if that's the most interesting thing that you can find and think about them or want to talk about, you need better friends. Find more interesting friends, because I guarantee you, this is such a small portion of who I am overall, or who any of us are overall, and what we, what value we bring to organizations, to our families, to our communities. It's just small. And I think it's important to know that as individuals and organizations, and, as if you're not a trans person, as individuals within the community, to know that, like, when you look across people like myself, we're just like you. We're not, unfortunately for me, we're not that doggone interesting in terms of our identity or sexuality. So that's what I would add.
I do want to follow off where they were talking about that level for transgender people, especially in the state of Tennessee right now. In 7 days, I won't be able to use the bathroom where I believe I'm comfortable to use the bathroom at any point. I literally have friends out there doing recon and ready to see the signs where I'm allowed to go in to a women's restroom because I am a woman. And off of it, yeah, there's nothing about my being trans as me. That's just, I'm like, whoop-de-doo. I'm sorry that I'm, I stand out because I'm a tall woman. My mother's a tall woman, but it's just every day. It's just, be interested in me, like the stuff behind me, that's me, not my identity. This is who I am. And the things I do, the things I accomplish, the things I have accomplished and will accomplish. Pay attention to that. That's what we need to look at for each individual. What, not their identity, but who they actually are. Because there's so many more things that you could talk to me about being trans that you could particularly find interesting.
Thank you so much for sharing. Elle, like you said, you've told me for years, if that's the most interesting thing about you, then clearly I'm looking in the wrong place. And I feel that very strongly. We joke in some of our facilitations when we're talking about identity, I introduce myself as a fat Black lesbian, and people kind of have this real visceral reaction to that. But those are the big things, but they aren't the most important things. They aren't what makes me unique. So to echo what everyone has said, like, that's what's important. So I want to ask, definitely for anyone who feels passionate, what changes have you seen in your lifetime as a member of the community? And then Terry, specifically as an ally to the community, what changes have you seen that maybe we haven't seen from on the inside?
Sure, I'll jump in. I've seen everything change. I remember growing up as a kid, there was very little representation of LGBTQ folks on television or in movies. And most of them, they were the crazy person. If you think about like Psycho and the representation there and what that looked like. And so it's been really refreshing to see positive representation in movies and films and radio. I think that we still have a very, very long way to go, and this is really hard work. But I think it is important that sometimes we stop and recognize some of the positive things that have happened over time. I really never thought in my lifetime that I would get to marry the person that I love. I mean, I'll never forget Donna, my wife, and I got married in Hawaii in 2015, 20 days before the Supreme Court ruling. And we had just decided to get married in Hawaii because, you know, hey, if it's not going to be legal, we should at least get married somewhere that's fun and cool and beautiful. And then lo and behold, 20 days later, it became legalized, and we actually got to go to the, you know, Social Security office, change our Social Security cards, change our driver's licenses. And I remember when that decision came down, I bawled like a baby. I was in the middle of work and I just started crying uncontrollably. So I think that has changed a lot. I also think that because we are better in numbers, when we band together, that a lot of corporate policies and procedures have changed in the workplace. And that is due to a lot of large, very thoughtful organizations who sort of put that pressure on. I know that before working for Asurion, I worked for Dell Technologies, and they've been very big on their philanthropic endeavors for a long time. Folks like, you know, Dell, AT&T, Facebook, Google, that sort of set the tone for corporate America, saying like, this is the new standard. And it sort of forces the hand of other companies to come along for the ride if they want the best top talent in the industry. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. I'm grateful. In my lifetime, I've been fired for being gay. So I'm really grateful to now work for a company that says in their, you know, statement of employment that we don't discriminate based on your sexual orientation, your gender expression. And so I think all of those things have been real game changers, though we still have a lot of work to go. Because we fought the good fight together, we've definitely made a lot of great strides in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, look at where we are. You referenced Stonewall 52 years ago, the start of the modern day civil rights, LGBT civil rights movement. And 52 years later, we are where we are. Let's look at that swing. There has never been another swing in civil rights like this. You know, you have now 62% of Republicans that are favorable to same-sex marriage and gay and lesbian people. Now notice I'm saying gay and lesbian, not LGBT people. And we've got to do more on transgender education and bringing and getting people to know the trans community and gender identity better to drive those numbers up. But you know, you've got 89% of independents and 98% of Democrats that are favorable of gays and lesbians. And you only have to go back 7 years before marriage equality, and those numbers were all below 50%. The swing in acceptance is huge. This year, with all of the anti-LGBT legislation, have really looked back at my suicide note that I wrote myself in 1999. When I was a closeted gay man, boy in Idaho, and I told a friend that I was gay, and he went and told people at school, and I thought that was the worst thing that could ever be shared about me. And I wrote a suicide note, and I was going to take my life because of that, because I couldn't see a future of me being an openly gay person. And I read that to give me strength, but remind me how far we've come, and then to try and tell young trans youth, hold on, it gets better. I believe so much in the It Gets Better campaign, because it does get better. Look at where we have come from. And I promise you right now, it looks terrible, but it's going to get better. And we are stronger united, and we'll continue to work for this. And we see you, we hear you, we're working for you, and it's going to get better. But just last year, Bostock, the Supreme Court ruled on Bostock, and it stopped you being fired for being LGBT. That's just a year ago. You only have to go back 7 years for marriage equality. Like, we continue to advance, and I hope that someday we'll have the Equality Act to lock in these protections. But let's be proud, let's take pride in where we have come from, but let's not forget there's still a lot more to do. And we've got to focus on the marginalized of the marginalized. These things are all interconnected. And a Black gay man is a marginalized of a marginalized community. A Hispanic lesbian is a marginalized of a marginalized community, often marginalized more from their racial community than they are the broader community. And that a Black trans woman is the marginalized of a marginalized of a marginalized community, and they have the suicide numbers and the murder numbers to back that statistic up. And those are the people that we have to remember. Those are the people that we have to work for. And while it has gotten great and we have made big strides, there's still a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo just like what Joe was saying in his experience. So for me, being an ally, I remember I was studying abroad in Japan, and I had a partner in my language class, and his name was Sebastian. So we worked together like 3 days a week in language class, and then he went back to Australia. And over the break, I was traveling, so he wrote me an email. And he wrote me an email basically telling me that, you know, he was scared to come out to me because he didn't want it to affect our relationship. And I'll never forget like that moment because, you know, I wrote him right back and I said, Sebastian, I would love you and treat you the same regardless. And I think that that was so important in that time because he didn't feel safe, he didn't feel comfortable, and he would rather not be his full self trying to, you know, salvage this relationship. And now, you know, I'm so proud, you know, we have stayed forever friends, and seeing him get to live his life fully and unapologetically has been so great. And for me, it's encouraging and seeing others come out. I'm, you know, from a small town in Arkansas, and, you know, growing up in church, I heard from the pulpit, like God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And so for me, you know, in my lifetime, just like, you know, Kimberly was mentioning too, there's been great change. I like lead a Bible study, and the other day, I have a pastor who's in my Bible study, and he said, we hired an LGBT admin, you know, and he was, you know, a little worried. And when they had, you know, mentioned in church, the church was so accepting. And it really just made me just like really shed like tears of happiness because, you know, I think there are so many struggles, especially this past year in our own state of Tennessee with the legislation. But to know that the people, like Elle was talking about, you know, the regular people, you know, as we keep fighting, we keep loving, we keep being inclusive, that's so important. And so for me, I think, you know, I'm so thankful to see positive change, and I know that we have a lot more to go.
I mean, it's, you know, what you remind me of, it's 2021, right? It is 2021, and we just had the very first NFL player come out as gay in 2021. Statistically, I'm pretty sure there's more, right? But it's crazy that it's 2021 and we're just now seeing somebody in the NFL come out, right? It's crazy.
It is. I have a friend who I talk about these types of issues with all the time. And I said, when are we going to get to the point where it's no big deal? When are we going to get to the point where it's no longer a first? To be the first person of color to do something, to be the first LGBT person to do something, to be the first woman to do something. Like, why is it a big deal? Why shouldn't that be the illusion of a norm? Because of course we know there are no norms. But for us as a community, well, as a world, you know, this past year has been so different. COVID made everything pause. Should have, not everything, but you get what I'm saying. And I know for me personally, COVID was really hard because I lost the social aspect of my life, working in spaces where, you know, it's okay to be out, but don't make a big deal about it. Having that social interaction with other people who were like-minded, it was hard for me to lose that. And I feel like that might be a universal theme for everyone, but specifically in relation to this small part of your identity. Joe and Greg, I know you said earlier that you've done a lot of work together in the past year. So can you share a little bit about how COVID affected your experiences?
Well, we have been busier in the last 15 months than we ever have because we've been, I think, stepping in and compensating for the lack of interaction and the hit of COVID on communities. Any marginalized community feels anything harder than the broader population because you're starting with a marginalized community. It hit the LGBT community the same way. And then again, like I spoke about earlier, marginalized and marginalized people felt COVID even harder. The Chamber's been around 23 years. Our 3 pillars of work are advocate, educate, and connect. Connect is networking events. It's bringing connection to the community, different events, different opportunities to talk and be with people, to share business cards and do business. Our Brewing Up Business program, we've never missed a month for 23 years of bringing together the community on the 3rd Thursday of the month. We went from 400 people at the Predators Pride Night in February, and then COVID shut everything down. We had over 60 people on a Zoom call. It was early too. Not everybody had Zoom on their computers and phones. We chose that platform, got it out there, and we held that Brewing Up Business and shared and have this safe space for people to come, be themselves, and make connections. We have continued to keep that up, but we've been able to focus on the marginalized of the marginalized. LGBT-owned businesses have been hit so hard, small businesses have been hit so hard over the last year, as all businesses have. And then you have Black LGBT-owned businesses, and they've been hit even harder because you don't have access to the same opportunities that straight white-owned businesses have access to. That's just the facts. There's data to back that up. So those are the people that we work the hardest for. And we've been really proud of being able to spotlight our LGBT and minority-owned businesses within the community to say, these businesses need your support. Here's what we're doing. The hardest part about this year is just the level of need and not being able to help everybody. But we have entrepreneurs like Greg and so many other chamber members that reinvented what they were doing in the new COVID world and have figured out how to thrive with the obstacles, continuing to be, put in front of them. And Greg, I'm so proud of the work that you've done with your business and keeping going. Please share, what the last year has been like for you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so when COVID first hit, a lot of us in the event space was dealing with a lot of cancellations from weddings and birthday parties and things of that nature with our clients, and who really didn't read the contracts very clearly when they signed it with the hotel or with the venue on what deposits that they was going to get back, what they wasn't going to get back. And so it fell upon us as event planners and decorators to help those individuals navigate through that. Either cancel their thing, get their money back, or reschedule it till later on the next year. That was one of the things that we first had to hit. And the second thing is hitting with the loss of income, because no one is paying us to go through and navigate and get refunds for those individuals and things of that nature. When everyone is canceling events and parties and things of that nature, where are we going to be able to pivot and get income from, or loans or anything of that nature? A lot of African-American small businesses, like Joe said, is not aware of all the resources that may have been out there because they're so focused on managing and operating their small business. Having to pivot from actually decorating and doing things to actually being a planner or a consultant or even a coordinator for future events and future weddings. And that was nothing that I really like to do in my wheelhouse. I'm the creative aspect of my business, not the day-to-day, scheduling their site visits and tastings and all of the things that goes along with it. However, in order for me to continue to strive and continue my business operations, I had to pivot into that role and get income from planning events that's in 2021 to 2022 and things of that nature. Being able to hold on to my small employee base that I had through the pandemic and making sure that they had something to do and things of that nature. I'm grateful and thankful for the work of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce. I was a board member and a former vice president of the chamber, so I knew that that is a resource that I could reach out to and pivot and thanks to Joe and the team that they're doing in that aspect of it. But it has been a challenge, and we're going. The world is opening back up now. We're still trying to do safety cautions and measures within all of the events that we still do right now. And it's been an eye-opening experience for people like myself.
Thank you so much for that. So we know that COVID changed things. I know that across the US, there are still lots of legislation, over 50 pieces of legislation that are either on the table, recently been enacted, or trying to be enacted for the next legislative season that specifically target members of the LGBTQIA community. I know one of the things that everyone can do is get out and vote, but beyond that, what do you think needs to happen via policy and organizations moving forward to help improve the lives of LGBTQIA identified individuals? I know I say often that my identity is not political. It should not be up for debate. It should not be up for conversation. But the reality is we're still fighting for rights every day. Terry, I know you have some insight on this, and Joe, this is definitely in your wheelhouse. And now I would like your ideas on policy going forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, it's really important to inform yourself and recognize that, LGBTQ Americans are not fully protected from discrimination in 29 states. Think about that. The majority of our country, including our own state of Tennessee, and I think that's really important that you can because of your gender identity and how you identify, self-ID, that can, you're not protected. And so for me, I think that's something we have to keep pushing, and working with each other. And just talking with my friends, we have to be informed. You can't, just because it doesn't affect you, doesn't give you an excuse, right? Ignorance is not acceptable. And I think one thing as well I'd love to point out too is that policy, not only in the federal government, but at your work. I think there are so many policies that can, especially regarding healthcare. And I really want to talk to this because at Comcast, I am really proud that we are a leader in transgender inclusive healthcare benefits. I mean, we offer best in class for not only our employees, but their dependents. Our healthcare plan covers gender confirmation surgery. And I think for others, that are on this call, if you're not sure about your company's healthcare benefits, ask. Because you've got to have a champion. And then I'm really proud, just last year, we rolled out a center of excellence, improving the health and well-being of our transgender population. And we've expanded coverage to dependents 16 and older. So, that's stuff that we are working on currently, right? It can be improved every day. Don't feel that if it's not there today, it can't be there in the near future. So I definitely encourage you all. And like we talked about before, I think it's about top down and bottom up. You've got to have your champions and, your senior leaders, but also every employee talking about it, raising it up, bubbling it up whether you have NPS or other way of employee, feedback, make sure and include that because I would say if you have great leaders, I know for, ours, we've seen changes because people raise their voice. And so I think we can do that as well. And I'll pass it over to Joe to add.
So it was a brutal year. In Tennessee, unfortunately, is historic in the level of brutality and anti-LGBT legislation that moved forward and was even sponsored. So since 2015, Tennessee is the state with the most anti-LGBT legislation proposed, over 75 bills since 2015. We passed more anti-LGBT legislation this year than any other state. 5 bills ended up passing. We are the first state to pass a bathroom bill since the 2016 North Carolina bathroom bill that brought a $3.75 billion economic fallout upon that state. We didn't just pass one, we passed 2. The transgender athlete bill was in 27 states. This isn't an issue. They cannot find cases that this is addressing. These are politicians that have never supported women's sports, but now they're an advocate for women's sports. It wasn't about protecting girls' sports. It was about attacking transgender individuals. And they got really smart this year because gays and lesbians poll so high. So we're not going to talk about the LGBT community. We're going to talk about transgender people, and we're going to talk about gender identity, and people don't know it and people don't understand it. So we're just going to openly go at that, and we're going to make it, quote, political. And what it did was it split people, and instead of being discriminatory, and I'm against discrimination, it became, I'm for girls sports and I don't know trans issues, so I'm okay with this. I'm not going to speak out. I'm going to stay silent. It even worked on our corporations that have always led in this matter. And you had corporations that have been engaged in these issues for years stay silent this year because it was, quote, transgender issues, and it's political now. It's always been about transgender issues. The bathroom bill in North Carolina that brought the fallout that we've all been engaged about was about transgender issues. Don't take this bait. Don't fall for this. Let's talk about it as discrimination. Discrimination is bad for business. It stops businesses from attracting and retaining the talent they need to work for them. And people don't want to move to Tennessee. Nashville's great, but they're afraid to move to Tennessee and live. And they're afraid to bring their children that are LGBT and have those children here. They can't access healthcare. They get bullied in schools. They can't use the bathroom in schools. It is a real concern. So, couple things. 5 bills passed, 2 bathroom bills, 2 the transgender bathroom bill signed that has garnered so much attention and is supposed to go into effect July 1st. We're working closely with the ACLU. We have 3 LGBT chamber members that are going to be filing suit. We're going to add plaintiffs on that case. And there is a very good chance that we can have this law, this horribly written and discriminatory law, held. The impact is small on the types of businesses it can actually affect. So to our transgender siblings, it is okay to go to the bathroom. We are working to stop this law from taking effect, and go to the bathroom where you need to go to the bathroom. This bathroom political nonsense is just infuriating, and I'm sorry that you guys are the target of this, but we're working to have that law challenged in court. We're going to challenge the other bathroom bill in court. We're challenging the athlete law bill in court. The ACLU is taking on those, and we'll continue to push business. This year, I dropped in the chat our legislative wrap up, but we had over 50 corporations this year engage with our open letter and engage actively at the state level to push back on the discrimination under the business principles that I talked about earlier. So we've got a lot more work to do. We're gearing up. My fear is, though, if there is not significant impact to the state, big economic fallout or some other major development, it is going to be open season on all LGBT people next year, all across the country. If Tennessee doesn't take the hit, get ready. In every other state controlled by so-called pro-business Republicans, they're going to target the LGBT community. And we need to be prepared for that. And our allies, the allies that support LGBT people, need to be prepared to that, to get involved. And it starts with voting. If you don't vote, but you sit back and post on social media about how bad the world is, I'm sorry, I don't have any time for you. Advocate, and to advocate means you pull the levers of power, and it starts with voting.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Elle, I know your perspective is unique based on your line of work. So what changes do you think would be helpful? What do you think organizations need to do?
Yeah, so I think there are some nuances that make it unique, but it's not quite that different, right? And so I think the things that have already been said, are great, because I think there are 2 ways of looking at this, right? So I think there's the actual policy, right, and the laws that are implemented, which Terry and Joe, like they've already spoken to, but then I think there is the theoretical framework that we build those policies around. And so I'll try to quickly speak to that. So I think outside of the actual policy, right, we should need to think about the theoretical framework. And I think what organizations can do is look at the policies they already have and identify those policies and those people, right, who believe in those policies and who put those policies in place, in place that actually other LGBTQ folks and QIA folks, and ask themselves, why is this something that we do? Why is this something that we believe is necessary, right? Like, why do we need trans-specific healthcare, right? Like, why do we need to ensure our healthcare includes trans people? Our healthcare should include all people, right? Do trans people need some type of special healthcare that other people don't need? Like, if you get cancer, I want your cancer covered, right? If you need any type of surgery, I want whatever type of surgery it is that you need covered, right? So, right, that's healthcare, right? Like, trans people don't need like special bathrooms. They don't need special accommodations, and all LGBTQ folks, right? Like, we don't need special accommodations. So what we need, what I would encourage individuals to do and organizations to do, the organizations that those individuals are a part of, is to look at all of those policies and say, why is this something that we're doing, and why do we believe it needs to be done? Why do we believe that we need to other folks? Why do we not have absolutely inclusive policies that would apply across the board to every single person that we employ or that we interact with? And if we don't have that, like, how do we fix it? Because when we talk about building inclusive organizations, that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. That's the type of thing, that I need to happen. And I need allies to think about those things and to recognize those things when they see them, and to call them out, right? So.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that the businesses are just now figuring out, as elementary as this sounds, when I first started working at Asurion and advocating for employee resource groups, advocating for policy change, a lot of people were sort of scratching their heads like, Tate, I need you to help me understand, like, why do we speak out publicly about LGBTQ stuff? Why do we teach people about voter suppression? Like, I'm just someone's employer, right? Like, I don't understand. Okay, did you know that some of your employees are gay, right? Did you know that some of your employees are trans? Some of your employees, like 40% of them are Black, right? That's probably a good reason to advocate for them. And so I think that not only the policy procedure, but it's also the education. It's educating people about the LGBTQ community. It's educating people about the lack of access that the Black community has to healthcare and the terrible experiences they've had with healthcare. It's helping them to connect the dots and help them understand that, even still today in 2021, women still make 80 cents on the dollar. And oh, by the way, that's white women. If you're, Black, you're making 70 cents. If you're a Latina, you're making 50 cents. And oh, you are being impacted by COVID. And so now you can't afford daycare. And helping companies and organizations understand all of these things. Being Black impacts your experience at work. Being LGBTQ, it impacts your experience at work. And so businesses stepping up to the plate and creating policies and procedures that protect their employees and then educate their employees. One of the biggest things that I've seen happen is people just didn't get education. We got education on what it's like to be white in America. And when you teach people about voting rights and voter suppression, people will step up to the plate and be like, oh, I just had no idea. I'll help. Tell me how to help. But they need to know that it's a problem first. So I think education's huge.
Absolutely.
Real fast on that education point, though, and I think this is what I've been talking about all session. I see that I'm a white trans or a white cisgender gay man speaking to these issues. We have to amplify trans voices. We have to amplify Black voices within the LGBT movement. But then this whole last year has been about amplifying Black voices, educating ourselves on systemic racism and social injustice. We've got to continue to do it around gender identity issues as well. So first you have to recognize who's speaking and amplify the voices of that community to be heard. But then around education, here's the key that I hope people, like the thing that I hope people hear. if you're talking about systemic racism or social injustice, or if you're talking about gender identity and trans issues, if someone says something stupid or says something wrong, but you can tell, we all know intention, and we can tell what was their intention when they said the wrong thing. The worst thing we can do when we educate is to attack, is to say, you know, what you said is racist, or what you said, you know, you're against trans people, you misgendered me, and attack them. Because what you do is you take an ally or a potential ally and you make them feel wrong and shameful. And I'm not saying give people a pass. You know intention when they mess up. And if they mess up, it's hard. Lean in, reach out, educate them, and bring them along with us, because this attack, this polarization of our country, this 100% with me or I'm 100% against you, and you said this, so I'm going to cancel you and make you feel shame for what you said. That's got to stop, because we're never going to bring people along if we continue to do that. So I think that's got to go along with education, but Kim is right. Education is key.
And I agree wholeheartedly. I think part of the issue, that at least that I know that I've run into with people who want to be good allies, is that fear of, I'm not going to get it right on the first try. And we don't need you to get it right on the first try. We just need you to keep trying. And I think that's the most important part of allyship. Not to be performative, not to change, you know, your Facebook profile, not to do any of that. Just, I need you to try. I need you to keep trying. I need you to speak for me in rooms that I don't have access to. I need you to go to your homophobic or transphobic family members and say, look, people are people. Like, none of this matters. I need you to take care of the people I love, the people who are close to me. Last year was the most deadly year for transgender individuals in the history of the United States. And this year is already shaping up to be worse. That is not okay. And so how are you not saying that? So I know for me, allyship means standing up and speaking out when I can't do it for myself. And so since we're getting close to the end of time, I don't want to end this conversation without a conversation about allyship. So if you could share something that an ally or accomplice, depending on what words you like to use, political correctness, we have to change up terms a little bit. But what is something that someone did that truly helped you? And I've been forewarned that I need tissues for this, so I have them. So Ms. Auralia, if you could kick us off for our final question.
4 years ago, this Friday, I came out to one of the panelists that's on with us today, Kimberly, Stephan, Tate. I spent 13 years after I was honorably discharged medical from the Army with a spine that was degrading. The amount of medication that I was on kept me from being able to express who I was. In 2017, that March, I had spinal surgery, thanks to the wonderful people at Vanderbilt. And I was still in recovery that June at Pride, but I was the ally. I was just the little tech nerd that was helping things. But since I was out of my haze, all that medication was out of my system, I started breaking down, and I was able to come out to Kimberly. And not only it was just, okay, great, that's cool. She literally sat down with me at work and we got everything calmed down later. And we started making a roadmap for my coming out. I started therapy in that August. Kim and I kept in contact. I may have pushed the button a little fast because I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't wait. And that December, I came out to the company. And she taught me how to channel all that frustration that I'd had for years and speak up. I'm not, or was not, in a position of leadership in the company, but I had a voice. And there are plenty of transgender individuals in that company and outside of the company that didn't feel like they had a voice. So I used that voice as loud as I could. And I'm going to continue to use it, but now it's just going outside of the boundaries that I had put there. And I'm going to bring back the person I was in the Army. So that voice is going to get really, really loud. But Kim, thank you so much for giving me my life back. There y'all go. Y'all have fun with that.
Yes, thank you. As soon as this is over, I probably am going to go have a nice good cry. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing. You know, I have a rule that I don't out people. And before I had the introduction, I asked my daughter, I was like, are you okay with me saying this? She was like, Mama, there's no more closet. And if it's a closet, it's a walk-in closet. You're not sharing anything everyone doesn't already know. But it's so important to have that safe space. I think we should have time for one more ally story. I know, Greg, you unmuted at the same time. That you have one to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, just real quickly, started out with Nissan North America at the manufacturing facility, and I wasn't comfortable coming out in that aspect, in that realm. But then when I moved to HQ headquarters in Franklin, I met a wonderful lady by the name of Kathy Lively, who was a champion or ally for the LGBT community within Nissan, and she helped spearhead all of the policy changes and procedures within our organization, gave the LGBT community a voice within our organization, and actually helped with some trans issues and getting healthcare change within our organization as well. So she was the voice that changed our corporate culture within Nissan. And so I'm forever grateful for her and being able to open up the door and window for individuals that did not think that they had a voice at those particular levels.
Can I say, one thing I want to say is we all have bias. Every single one of us has bias. You don't escape life without bias, right? So as much as I maybe helped Aura helped me, I didn't understand that the LGBTQIA was not equal playing ground, right? And then, you know, I do D&I work all day long. I thought I was pretty woke. And then I had a girl that I work with, her name, I'll just say Z. And I was like, yeah, I understand. She's African-American. I was like, I understand your troubles. And she was like, girl, you don't know anything, right? And I think it's getting vulnerable and having real conversation about what it's like to walk in the world as you, because only you are you. So only you can speak to your personal experience in life, but it's having more conversations about, help me understand. I want to know what it's like to be you. That's where I think real change can happen, because we are so much more alike than we're different, but we don't know until we have a conversation about it. And we don't know how we're different and learn to appreciate that until we have a conversation about it.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. And if I can close real quick, because I think, you know what, allyship, like there's so many roles like allies play. And I really want to close with that, because I think you can be a sponsor. And for that, recommend your LGBTQIA colleagues for stretch assignments and learning opportunities. Be a champion, right? Advocate for LGBTQIA, you know, women, like members of other represented to be keynote speakers like you all, People 3 did today. Thank you. Thank you for that. You know, be an amplifier. When someone on your team does something great, say it, repeat it, and give them credit, not yourself. You know, be an advocate. I think one thing that I really like in a book I read recently was like they were looking closely at an invite list and they were realizing there were some people missing. So if you see LGBTQIA, you know, group missing, advocate for them to be invited, because you have that voice. You know, and being a scholar, I think one thing that's really important is that today with access to internet, you know, there are tons more than before podcasts, social media publications. So from NBC out to The Advocate, to pride.com, to LGBTQ Nation, like read up on what's going on, you know, so we can be better, you know, allies, be an upstander. I think like what Joe said, I think when we do witness behavior or speech that's degrading or offensive, speak up, but speak up kindly, right? With love and care, and then be a confidant. I think just how Kimberly like closed it, listen and ask questions when someone describes an experience you haven't had. Don't jump in with your personal stories. It's not your time, you know, just listen. And I think that is so important. I think we as a whole society, I think as all, you know, we need to listen more and actively listen. So I think there's so many great ways to be allies. And I really appreciate you all including me today.
It has been a pleasure to work with you all today, and thank you all so much for being a part of Conversations in Color.